If you have ever applied for a job at the UN, you will know that this is extremely hard to get in, even more so for the permanent position. But why exactly is that? What makes the UN and especially the permanent contract so difficult to get in? Let's talk about it. My name is Viola, and I started IOReady, International Organizations Ready, to share knowledge, tips, and insights as someone who has worked at the EU, UN, and the OECD and did not at all have an easy journey of getting in. In this series about how to get a job at the UN, we focus on the United Nations, and I have myself secured 2 positions at the UN, so I feel pretty qualified to talk to you about that. If you're interested in working at the UN, do subscribe and follow along because this is a series and there is more videos coming about this topic. In today's video, we'll cover 7 key challenges of getting into the United Nations. Let's go. Challenge number 1, intense competition. I'm starting with this one because it's probably the hardest of all of the challenges. There is a lot of qualified applicants applying for jobs at the UN, and because of the fact that for many UN agencies there is 170, 180 national member states, a lot of people from all across the world are eligible to apply for specific jobs. People with master's degrees, if not multiple master's degrees, PhDs, people with so many years of experience, people living abroad and speaking multiple languages. Everyone's applying for the jobs at the UN because of the reputation that it has. Even UN internships receive hundreds of applications. I have made several videos of what made my profile successful in the whole process despite coming from a small town in eastern Poland. So if you would like to know a little bit more about my journey and my advice, I recommend you to watch the 7 key steps of getting into international organizations based on my own journey, but also a video that I made about the 7 habits that I think you should adopt to be able to have higher chances of landing a job at the UN. Challenge number 2. High qualifications expectation. So despite the fact that there is a very high competition and a lot of people do have very high qualifications, you as a candidate are also required to have many years of experience, master's degrees, multicultural experience, diplomatic skills, and a lot that comes with the job in itself. And as a profile, it's really difficult to develop because there's so many tasks and responsibility that you're going to be having that candidates are constantly asked for more and more. You need to have data analytical skills while also having coordination skills, while also having diplomatic skills and organizing events. There is a lot that we need to bring to the table to be able to work at the United Nations. And again, because of the high competition from point 1, these requirements are getting higher and higher, even if not on paper. In realities, the expectations from candidates are extremely high. Challenge number 3, long and complex application process. If you have ever gone through any recruitment processes at the UN, you know that they can take forever, that there are many steps to getting a job, and in particular, if you're applying for a fixed term or permanent contract, the process can last for more than a year. For some of the positions, you also need to go through some of the security clearances. And for all of the positions, you need to go through the reference check, which means that getting a job can take such a long time. Not only applying for jobs take a very long time, but also going through the recruitment process takes a very long time. Challenge number 4, contract insecurity. It is well known by now that the UN contracts are usually short-term or fixed-term and very insecure. It is true that there is less and less permanent positions available within the UN, which means that as a candidate, it is a huge challenge to be able to maintain a career in the United Nations. You not only need to understand all of the different contract types, all of the different UN grades, but also you need to network really hard to be able to have some sort of security and some sort of knowledge. So if you're not manipulating through the system and through the contract insecurities, you're not going to be able to have a career at the United Nations. And don't get me wrong, a lot of people actually choose to leave the United Nations because of how little of security you get. Number five, language requirements. It's extremely difficult to match all of the jobs within the United Nations because of how particular they are. One of you have asked me a question about whether or not you need to speak multiple languages to get a job at the UN. The truth is that no, you don't need to speak multiple languages. You still can get a job even if you only speak English or French. So either way, you would need to be a native speaker to be able to do that. But to have a higher chance of being able to get more positions within the UN, you do need to speak multiple languages. Very often, you have particular positions in a particular region on particular topics where you are required to speak Arabic or to speak Urdu or to speak Swahili. And it's really important for the mission of the organization to speak these languages. As a candidate, however, mastering a language can take 4, 5, 6 years. So it is a really big challenge for candidates to be able to add an extra language to your CV, knowing that it's going to take you years to be able to work in that particular language. Challenge number 6, limited opportunities for young professionals and early careers. There's really such a big gap between internships, which are plenty. So many internships are available for young people, and then actual jobs. This is a really big issue, and there's a lot of different strategies that you can utilize to be able to bridge that gap. But the truth is that there's between an internship and a P3 position, so around 5 years of experience, it would be very difficult for you to get a position at the UN. It is not impossible, and there is a lot of people, including me, who have very little years of experience managed to have opportunities within the system and in other international organizations. It's very hard to bridge that gap. So opportunities are scarce, and whenever they are available, they're either highly competitive and selected based on nationalities, such as YPPs or JPOs. For example, me as a Polish national, in the past 10 years, there haven't been a YPP competition where Poland could participate as a member state, nor do we have JPO positions sponsored by our government. So for me, straight away, both of these opportunities are out of the window because they are just simply not available for me. Other opportunities that are available to people are either through your network. So again, you need to be in the right place at the right time. You need to know the right people. You need to make a lot of effort into building your network, like I have done, or to already have diplomatic connections through your family or for your friends or for your university, which is also an added advantage if you are able to do so. In short, opportunities are scarce, and they're also pretty bad in terms of what is your salary, what is the stability of your contract, and how secure you feel within your team, and also what responsibilities you are given at positions when you're a young professional within international organizations, and particularly United Nations. Challenge number 7, geographical mobility requirement. If you want to work at the UN, you probably include an option of moving. But there's different types of moves. It would be very exciting to move to Geneva or Paris or New York. But there's a lot of jobs that are available and are easier to get because of where they are in field missions and in countries or places that are dangerous. For example, I got a position at UN peacekeeping mission in Central African Republic in Obo, which I'll show you where it is on the map, is in the middle of nowhere, and it is quite literally the most inaccessible point of Africa, which tells you a lot about the situation there. And without getting into all of the aspects, including armed groups available there and accessibility and safety of UN staff, it is way easier for me to get a job in Obo in Central African Republic than it is in New York. I'll let you think about that. So you need to be ready as a UN professional to be able to move. And while for some people and at some stages of our career, that's okay when you're young, when you want to have field work experience, but there comes a moment for some of you that you might want to be in a safer environment. you might want to start a family and want to provide a safe environment for your children and for your partner as well, which means that it's not something that candidates at some point want to compromise or don't want to compromise from the very beginning. I have been working with a lot of different clients, and a lot of people tell me that they are very simply not willing to go to hard duty stations, which I completely understand, and you can still get jobs. But it is one of the key challenges in getting jobs at the UN, the geographical mobility aspect. You are required as a potential international civil servant to be doing so throughout your career. Now, let's move to my favorite part of the series, which is questions from our audience. Question number one: I come from a developing country. How can I find a job at the UN? I get this question so often, and I honestly do not understand where it comes from. It is true that our nationality determines a lot in the international organization sector. It affects your eligibility, it affects your visa requirements, it's a lot. But every single nationality has its own benefits. For example, as I have mentioned before, as a Polish national, there is no JPOs, there is no YPPs, there is very little opportunities for me being in between the very wealthy countries like France or Italy, if we count them as super wealthy. But they do have these programs for international development of their citizens. That's not the case for Poland. So I am stuck in between. While developing countries, even though I completely understand that this is a different environment, you have less educational opportunities, maybe the quality of education is also lower. But because of that, there is a lot of sponsorships and a lot of programs that actually allow people from developing countries to get into international organizations and the United Nations. The YPP is basically made from people from developing countries. And a lot of wealthy countries like Denmark or the Netherlands do sponsor some places for JPOs in developing countries, which again is something that is not available to me. And I often have conversations with people who complain, I don't have a visa or I can't work in the European Union or wherever you want. But I almost feel that you're trying to keep finding excuses because it's hard for everyone. And yes, I have given you an example of me where I don't have so many opportunities. I still made it work, by the way. As you have seen, I have experiences from the UN, EU, and the OECD, and there are proper jobs. So that's fantastic. I prefer that to a JPO position, for example. But if you think about, let's say, France or the UK, where you have those concours, what happens is that in France, you have such high quality of candidates that getting that JPO position in France is almost impossible because, again, people with many years of experience apply for it. People who have graduated from top universities apply for it. And the competitiveness is so high that it's almost easier to get a real job at the UN than go through this competitive process. So please, if you come from a developing country, look at your opportunities because there are so many of them. Stop focusing so much on what's not available for you. And that is a mistake that I have done in the past. I have been focusing on, wow, this is not available for me. This is not available for me. How am I going to make it? Well, guess what? I made it work, and it's your responsibility to make it work as well. Look at what's out there. Look at all of the scholarship opportunities. Look at all of the programs that require you to come from a developing country. There are so many of them. And I do share a lot of opportunities in our bi-weekly I Already newsletter. So you can always sign up for it. I always have a link to it in our YouTube channel description. So you're more than welcome to join the community and be regularly updated about what are the opportunities for you based on your nationality. Question number 2. How can I stand out as a candidate when I apply for a job at the United Nations? And there's 3 elements that I would like you to think of. First, think about your qualifications and how well of a match you are for a job, because you're going to stand out if you're a perfect match for the job, if you have all of the skills required, if you have all of the programs or everything included, if you have the diplomatic skills, if you have the master's degree, and so on and so forth. So basically, being a perfect match for a job is a way of making you stand out. Secondly, you can make your application more visible by being very targeted and understanding exactly what the recruiter wants. What does it mean? That means reaching out to people and asking exactly what are the projects that you're going to be working on and how can you tailor your application, not only based on the job description and the keywords, but also through resourcing information from other people on the team on within the international organization to make sure that in your motivation letter and your CV, you respond to the needs of the team. And the third one is your network. There's this process of reference from someone, not only within the system, but from other international organization is gold. With these three things, you're definitely going to stand out. Question number 3. Given the intense competition for the processes at the UN, how can I beat the competition? My answer to this may not satisfy you, but I think it's constant development and pivoting your skills. Within the United Nations, you are constantly going to be competing against people, against generalists, specialists, against everyone within the system. What's very important is that you don't focus on beating the competition, but improving yourself by developing your skill set, by being exposed to opportunities that are going to bring you to these next levels of professional development and beating the competition that way. I have mentioned that in the 7 habits, but something that I personally love and recommend my clients to do is to constantly work on a skill. It doesn't need to be 1,000 skills at once, but pick a focus for a year or for a particular quarter and try to develop a new skill or try to improve one to be able to pivot and to be able to showcase you're better than other candidates. Because again, the way I think about your career, especially your career at the UN, is long term. And to be able to sustain that and maintain that, you do need to perform, you do need to have a really good profile, but you also need to be able to understand many different things that are required for you throughout your career. So, personal development and professional development are key to getting not only jobs but a sustained career within the United Nations, even if it, yes, does require your constant work on yourself. Let me know in the comments down below what are the key challenges for you to enter the UN, and I would love to have a conversation about it. If you have learned anything from this video, please do subscribe. I started this series on how to get a job at the United Nations because I want you to have a better chance at landing a job at the UN. I do these videos for you for free, and my small team and I would be super grateful for any like, share, comment, or subscription to our channel, as it really motivates us to keep producing this and helping you out. So send it to someone who wants to work at the UN. I will see you in the next video in this series. I'll see you then. Bye.